Hello and welcome to the Voice of Todd. I'm Tom and today we're going to talk about the latest episode of WandaVision. This is Season 1, Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. Disney Plus had actually put the title on by the time I'd watched it, so we've got that detail as well, which is cool. But first, before we get into my review and my thoughts on the episode, if you enjoy this or any of my other content, please do hit that subscribe button, like the video, reach out in the comments as well. I do enjoy talking to you guys about anything really. It doesn't have to be about what the video is. There's loads of different stuff on the channel at the minute and lots more to come. Let's get into this week's episode. And this probably will be a short video because there wasn't much to talk about. First thing we normally do in these is touch on the style of the show. What are we based on? Well, it's up for discussion this week. It could be any number of shows. My head went straight to Parks and Rec, so that's where I'm going to stick it, which is a bit of a downside. I love the Parks and Rec style. As the episode's called, Breaking the Fourth Wall, the character to camera moments, they do work. I think they're quite fun if done correctly, and they certainly are done correctly in here. The problem is, all this episode I was thinking about Pawnee, I was thinking about Ron Swanson, and I was thinking about Lil Sebastian. Not what was actually happening. Both times I watched this, I was thinking about Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec's one of my favourite shows. It's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, and I absolutely love it, and the characters. There is a Marvel connection there with Chris Pratt as well, and I kept thinking, is Chris Pratt going to show up? He doesn't. He doesn't. That's not a spoiler, because nobody thought he was going to show up anyway. But he doesn't, so it's fine. But let's talk about what actually happened. Back into the Marvel verse, the MCU. It's all the MCU, right? Let's call it the MCU. I'm going to give you my big takeaways from this episode. Again, I say these are in no real order. They are in a bit of an order because it's least interesting to most impactful on the story. So there is an order there. Let's be honest about that. But there will be spoilers, real proper spoilers for the show. If you are disappointed that Chris Pratt wasn't in, let me know in the comments, and if that's ruined your day, I'm really sorry. Chris Pratt makes everything better. But let's talk about what Sword are doing this episode. Bugger all, basically. Sword and Hayward, having just recovered from last week's, which in series time is yesterday's, expansion of the Hex and the loss of manpower, the base, and everything else that went with it, and probably Hayward's dignity, what they had. They're just prepping a team to go in. That's it. That's all we see. Probably they're going to be going into the dome next week. There's 2 episodes left, so they're going to have to do something soon because they've done bugger all recently. So yeah, Sword did nada. The twins, they didn't do that much either. They did what kids do and went to annoy their mother to get her out of bed. Agnes pops round and she's offered to look after them. Interestingly, Tommy, I think it's Tommy, who got the telekinesis kind of psychic powers last week. He's clearly, and it's slightly hinted at, there's no real visible things, but it's slightly hinted at that he's struggling to control and he's hearing everything around him. But when there are Agnes's, he doesn't hear anything because she's quiet on the inside. Pretty fucked up for a kid to say, but you know, that leans into something later. So the twins are with Agnes, giving Wanda some me time. Rambo Jr. and Jimmy finally meet up with the guy that Junior knew, and I'm going to call her Junior for the rest of this because she's earned the right to just be called Junior. This was the most disappointing thing in the episode. I was really disappointed with this. The guy that she knew is actually the US Air Force, and there wasn't any guys there, I don't think. It was Commander, can't remember her name, but she's brought Rambo Jr. I said I was going to call her Junior, then I give her a full title. She's brought Junior a new toy. It's a space rover buggy thing that's all labelled up as Sword. So is the Air Force Sword? Or have they stolen it from Sword? Or is it an Air Force buggy that Sword... Or is it an... I'm even losing the will to carry on. They've brought her a new toy. So she jumps in said new toy, and Junior puts her foot down and crashes straight into the Hex. The Hex isn't going to let her through. It spits the truck out, and Junior just decides to go barreling headfirst in person, and she does break through the barrier. There is a moment where the barrier is almost like tearing her apart into different, I don't know if it's dimensions or time zones or what. We'll mention time zones when we get to Wanda. But it's tearing her apart. We get to hear loads of voices. Her mum's voice is in there. Captain Marvel was in there, I think. There was loads of other people. There was a guy who said something really sort of deep and menacing, but I think the nurse was in there. I think Hayward was in there. But it's a Rey moment. She hears all these voices. And then suddenly her newfound power pulls her together and she gets through the dome. Now, when she enters the dome, there is a sonar ping. So, yeah, I've done some Googling this week. I'm guessing she's going to be Pulsar. That's it. This week's advert, because we're breaking it up. We've done 3, we'll do the advert, then we'll do the next 3 more interesting characters. This week's advert is for Nexus antidepressants in a true American drug ad style. There was no legal warnings at the end, which usually takes up half the advert time anyway. But I think this ties into something that we've been saying about Wanda for a while. And we'll be getting to Wanda soon. But we're going to go to Vision first. Yes, he's alive. He is at the circus, or the old sword base, where he meets Darcy, who he then frees from Wanda's mind control, and they go on a bit of a road trip. That's pretty much it. While they're doing this, Darcy does fill Vision in on some of the events of the MCU, and his creation, what he was before, the talk of Jarvis, there's talk of Ultron, and then Thanos, not named, but Thanos, or Wanda killing him, and then Thanos rewinding time and killing him. I really want to know how Darcy knows all this stuff. Shouldn't this be like redacted reports, military stuff, sword, shield, whoever? Surely they shouldn't know this. This shouldn't be public knowledge. But anyway, Wanda is subconsciously trying to slow Vision down. Then Vision remembers he's got superpowers and phases through the van and flies home. I do want to say though, Paul Bettany is a fantastic actor. I've loved him for a long time, long before he was in the MCU. And he's just great in this. He's so versatile. He just delivers himself to the zany nature of this show so well. I think he's perfect. And it's nice that we've had more Vision. The more time we've spent with Vision, the more I've grown to love the character. He's probably one of my favourite characters now. Whereas he wasn't anywhere near through the films. So that of all the things that are really solid and great takeaways from this show, I think Paul Bettany is the one for me that's the best. But now we'll talk about Wanda. She's clearly drained after exerting her power in the last episode. She's clearly depressed. She's getting worse. I think that we've known maybe since episode 3, since after the kids were born, she's been slowly getting worse as things and events have started to unravel around her. But now, much like when she was pregnant, this is having an effect on her powers and the world around her, and not just her mental state. Because things are jumping about through time. The TV goes from a small flat screen modern day Samsung to an old set-top box, effectively, black and white, back to the 50s, or maybe 60s probably. Most of the house is jumping around. Big shout out to this week's top, I'll bet it's this week's top performer. This week's second top performer, the Stork, is back. That Stork's great. I love the Stork. But basically, Wanda is clearly lost, alone, and hurting. And she doesn't know why the world is moving like this around her. She's basically losing control. She's given in to the meaningless, and she's spiraling. Which I think is a feeling a lot of people can relate to at various times. But the only real thing that happens with Wanda this week, outside of Agnes, who is coming up next. Agnes, I'm on to you. Junior breaks in. Having got through the dome, she goes to Wanda's house. She goes to try and sympathise with Wanda. Wanda's having none of it. They have a bit of a fight, a superpowered fight, not a fisticuffs fight, but a superpowered fight in the street. Agnes steps in and breaks them off, and leads Wanda back to her house. Then we'll talk about Agnes. I've been on to you. My knowledge of Marvel is very limited, but I've been on to you. And we finally learn who Agnes is. But before we get to that, let's talk about Agnes's house and the things that are missing. Firstly, the twins. They're just not there. There's empty plates of food. Kids' shows are on TV. There's no twins. Also, her husband Ralph, who we've never seen. We've heard a lot about. We've never seen. He's not there. Is he real? I'm still leaning on yes. But we don't know. Maybe that will be revealed, or maybe that is just something that's going to be forgotten. But every episode he's been mentioned. I don't even think there was any pictures. I don't remember seeing anything. But anyway, the twins have vanished. Agnes says they could be playing in the basement, so Wanda heads down. And Agnes has a really cool basement. It's a cool set. It's a really cool set. It's all roots, runes, and witchy things. It's a proper coven for witches. There is a book there too. There is a quick shot on the book. The book is glowing, like giving off some kind of magical aura. It looks very different to the Darkhold, which was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Darkhold, I think, was sent to Hell in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or was it destroyed? I can't really remember. It was a lot of years ago. But that's the only book that I know in the Marvel universe. So this is probably something else. It did have a bit of a Book of the Dead vibe to it. So if you know what it is, let me know in the comments, because my knowledge is completely tapped out at this point. I think by episode 2 my knowledge was completely tapped out, to be fair. But there's this book in there. But anyway, Agnes follows Wanda down, and we get to learn who she really is. She is not Agnes. She is Agatha Harkness. I kind of see what she did there with the name. And it turns out she's been pulling the strings the whole time. We don't quite know to what degree. We don't know if she's had any control on Wanda, or if Wanda's, I suppose, mental break at this point was the catalyst that pulled Agatha to Wanda to either feed off her magic or help. I don't know. I don't know anything about the character. But she doesn't seem to be friendly. The twins have vanished, and she confirms that she killed the dog. Episode 3, I think that was. Episode 2, maybe. One of them. Earlier in the season. Does that mean that she's killed the twins, though? Maybe. She could have done. This week, and for the first week of this series, there is a mid-credit scene. I don't know if you missed it. You didn't really miss much. Basically, Junior finds Agatha's house, or Agnes's house, or whatever the hell you want to call her. And Pietro shows up. That's it. So Pietro's not dead. But that's really all that happened in the episode. Very quiet episode this week. Outside of the Agnes reveal, I'd say nothing happened. It was done in a nice way. I do like the Parks and Rec style. It did work. Still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. But I suppose we've just had a few weeks of big story moments and nothing really happened until the last 2 minutes. But I have done a little bit more Googling on Agatha Harkness. Turns out, from Wikipedia, because I'm pretty basic like that, Agatha Harkness is, I think, an ally to Scarlet Witch, but she's also has quite strong ties to Fantastic Four. If you're a comic fan, or if you know this stuff, pop something in the comments, drop me a message, whatever, because I would like to know more, but I don't know what I'm looking for at this point. But it definitely seems like we're not going to get Doctor Strange in this, so will we get Mr. Fantastic? Maybe that's what we should be gearing up for, if Harkness is such a big character for Fantastic Four. And Scarlet Witch, clearly. Is she going to be the one that ties everything together, or is she going to be one of the many pieces that moves into the next Doctor Strange film, and that will tie up the Fantastic Four? We do know the film is coming, we haven't heard anything else. I'm not one of the... We're at a point with the MCU where all the characters that I know and would like to see, I guess, have been done, outside of Cyclops and some of the X-Men, which would be really cool to get a properly done X-Men film in the MCU. I would be excited about that. But I don't really know much about the Fantastic Four. I don't know anything about Harkness. There's so much that I don't know at this point. There's not really much that I can get excited about, unless I went on a massive sort of YouTube Google binge and tried to learn everything about the MCU. I'm at a point now where I don't actually know where this series is going. It does still feel that anything can happen. We have 2 episodes left. They could be setting up anything here, which, you know, I did enjoy this episode. I didn't think it was amazing. I didn't think it was the best. It was probably on par with episode 3, which I think was the other weaker one of the season. I kind of think that at this point in the season, I would have liked something else to happen, something a little bit more interesting. The magic for me, no pun intended, but the magic for me was when Wanda and Vision were together, that sort of kooky, zany style that they had, the very sitcom stuff. And alright, it moved through the time zone, or the different time periods that it wanted to be set in, and I suppose the story had to move them apart to send Wanda down this path. But it's lost that spark for me, I think. I'm still enjoying it. It's still not a bad show. The money is clearly on show here, and both Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are incredible. Catherine Hahn has been amazing as well. I don't think you can really fault the main cast here, but it's just lost some of that special something that it had by separating the two main stars. Which is a shame, but I am interested to see how this goes. My interest has ebbed away a little bit. I did do a little bit of googling around on the case files that I found last week. Didn't really see much. There was some reference to Doctor Strange in one of the numbers, but it was mostly Marvel comics, be it Avengers or Thor or whatever it was. But nothing that really excited me enough to do a video for you. I'm not a big comics guy, and we're at the point that I don't know stuff now. But outside of what I know, I want to know what you think. Is there any details that I've missed that are pointing at other characters that could be coming in? What did you think about the Agatha Harkness reveal? And does she kind of lean into how you know the character? Because the very brief glimpse that I've seen, she doesn't seem like a villain in the original source material. So let me know what you think. As always, I'd love to hear. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.